This is Jim Sawyer for capitalismandcrisis.org. Adam next addresses his zombie colleagues Jeremy and Joan as the threesome winds up its visit to the thought-provoking public library in the great salty city. However, little could Smith know during the break, Robinson, on the spot, excoriated a roomful of liberal political operatives. Neither could Smith know also Jeremy is preparing to ditch Joan and Adam. As Adam warms up, Bentham slumbers in his seat amid visions of riding the frontrunner back to Truthiness City. Once there, he fantasizes, he'll apply for faculty work as a guide, undermining contemporary culture on behalf of Truthiness students from conservative families. Next, Smith begins reminding his colleagues he was numero uno economist, the original top banana, if you will, double-dipped on top of an 18th century moral philosophy background. Back then, Professor Smith muses, he asked and answered questions about so-called right action, what ought responsible people to do, and what ought responsible societies to do to hold daily life prudently within ethical guardrails. We must stem seepage, Smith chastens, into the casino-like clutches of short-term-oriented Bentham and Trump-type high rollers, Smith quips. Just then, Joan gazes in Jeremy's direction, who now is turning bright red with rage, given Adam's most recent insult. Next, the utilitarian bolts from his seat, stumbles into the stairwell, and then out onto the sidewalk below on his way to catch the front-runner, never to be seen again in the great salty city. Pausing, Adam acknowledges Jeremy's abrupt departure, but amps up the rhetoric further. He also muses about his own career 2 centuries earlier. BlackRock's Stephen Fink, Professor Smith thinks, is something of a contemporary incarnation of what Adam had in mind way back when. That is, a capitalist serving ultimately the common good. So how to make America great again, Adam asks rhetorically. By making capitalism great again, he responds emphatically. So how to do that? Well, the contemporary prescription lies embedded in moral philosophy, he asserts. But one must dig for it. It's about right action. So let's take a quick public ethics tour, he beckons to Joan, now his only listener. The bottom line, he says, is this. Good citizenship is essential to Larry Fink-type good capitalism. So also is good government. Give up Bentham's misplaced faith in fairy tale economic laws, Smith implores. Give up attempting to explain how the economic world ought to work, piggybacked on the myth of spontaneous market order. It is true, Adam says, in simpler times during Bentham's mortal life, the so-called free market played more of a self-organizing role. Not so much now, however, in complex contemporary life. Now much of what the market performed in simpler times requires also competent extra-market coordination through the aegis of government. So here's a message for Donald Trump and Jeremy Bentham. America needs to get its mojo back. It needs to get its plow horse back into the field. Quite simply, this is the only viable route to making capitalism great again. In turn, it's the only sure path to making America great again. Forget high finance, computerized stock trading, casinos, high-profile luxury hotel deals, and the like. You know, the sorts of business deals defining Donald Trump's career. Forget rigging and gaming as false routes to making the economy sizzle, to making America better. These are short-term facades, not unlike the metaphor of rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. It's time to dust off economic doctrine and identify where prior thinking creates current impasses resisted by right-wing ideologues. These are the folks who refuse to update their models to account for contemporary context, to account for pragmatism, to account for how the modern economic world actually has come to work. In great-grandfather's time, the repair of Say's Law made possible the Keynesian revolution, extracting America's Depression-era economy from protracted economic bubbles. In our time, the repair of the so-called profit lacuna can fix, also, a similar pernicious problem. Now comes the heavy lifting, not a time for passing unfunded tax cuts, the debt from which will be passed forward to the coming generation. Now comes need for an essential focus on capturing long-term structural value eventually we can pass along to our kids. So what is the way forward, the laborious but productive way forward? Well, it's about developing a common vision of the world in which we want future generations to live, rather than voting often out of media-manipulated anger for short-term policies that too often diminish their futures. It's about setting the rate of profit, the reward for holding capital, and distinguishing it from any legal reward to mere rigging and gaming schemes. It's about also moving away from merely tethering the horse by the door, instead toward securing it, again, in a productive role, in the field, in front of the plow. You're connected to Zombienomics. This is capitalismandcrisis.org. Stay tuned.